So guys, continuing with the leases, write a couple of points, in fact 1 page or something on yesterday's discussion, then we'll continue discussing further, sir. So Ind AS 116 is applicable to, okay, all lease contracts. Any lease contract, you have to account it only using Ind AS 116 principles, except for, so always there are some scope exclusions. Here scope exclusions include leases to explore reason is here Ind AS 106 applies. Leases of biological assets. Service concession arrangements. Licenses granted on intellectual property rights. Deeds to Ind AS 115, which is a revenue standard, actually that standard applies. Sir, these are scope exclusions, sir. E case 116 you should not apply at all. There are two other cases where you can claim exemption. Exemption discussion later on we will do. Yesterday I have discussed it with you. I did not make you write. Why I discussed with you is I already told you that lease accounting is done using ROE asset accountability to lease liability, and that principle is not applicable in two scenarios. One is a short-term lease and when the asset item is of low value. In two cases low, the general principle will not apply. But in our notes we haven't yet recorded officially ROE asset to lease liability or a discussion. So exemption point later on I will discuss with you. I'll make you write later on. So directly we'll go into lease meaning, sir. So yesterday our discussion was only about this introduction and all, and that exemptions will write down later on. Okay. So regarding lease, what did we discuss yesterday is at the starting date, which we called it as the inception date. On that inception date, the parties have to evaluate whether the contract is or contains a lease. Is a lease means straight lease contract. Contains a lease means there can be lease as well as non-lease contracts also. Whether a contract or lease component is there or not, you have to check. So that's the first point, sir. Lease meaning. Heading you right. Lease meaning. At inception of lease, entity shall evaluate whether the contract is or contains a lease. Next one, right? A contract is or contains a lease if that contract conveys right to control the use of identified asset for a period of time in exchange for consideration. So contract law, what should be there is right to control the usage of the asset must be transferred to the other party. Now, if you see the bolded or the boxed items there, one is right to control the usage, that is one. Number two, there is identified asset. Number three, we have highlighted period of time. Number four, we have highlighted the consideration part. If four parts, each by each we have to discuss it. There are questions on each one of them. Okay, so let's start with right to control the usage of the asset. Sir, first I'll tell you, later on you can copy. Inception ka meaning, commencement ka meaning, I will make you write later on. Discussion already over, sir. Inception means it's a date of agreement or any date before that where the parties have agreed principally and committed to the terms. What is purpose of inception date is only this. Only this, nothing else. You have to just evaluate whether the lease contains, the contract contains a lease or not. That's all. That's the only objective of inception lease. If it is a lesser, that fellow has to evaluate whether the lease is a finance lease or operating lease. That extra effort he has to do. Who? Lessor. Lessee will not do that. Lessee ka job is only to understand that whether a contract contains a lease or not. Now, one more point I showed you yesterday. What is that? Is the parties in this contract, normally even though we refer them as lessor lessee, we will not call them as lessor lessee until we establish that the contract is a lease contract. We call them as supplier of the asset and customer of the asset. Okay. So customer eventually will become lessee, supplier eventually will become lessor. So here onwards you listen, sir. Again I'll make you rate after some time. Okay. If you want to parallel it, of course you can do that. Okay. First discussion will be right to control the usage, right to control the use. That's all. That means a customer is there, that means brackets or lessee. A customer ki, our owner of the asset, whom we call it as a supplier, he should give the right to control the usage. Sir, when will you say that right to control the use is given by supplier to customer. Of course, asset will be used by customer only, asset will be used by lessee only, but just because asset he is using, we cannot always say that the person using the asset is able to control the asset. So what you should be controlling is right to use ni, a customer should be controlling. Sir, when will I believe that? Is standard gives you two conditions here. Both the conditions must be satisfied. We will discuss this, we can write this later on, timing watch. Two conditions. First condition is substantially all the benefits from usage of asset during period of usage should belong to the customer or the lessee. So a customer should be entitled to enjoy all the, it's not all means not literally 100%. At the same time, it's not substantial economic benefit. Substantial means some sort of judgment applied where something around 60-70% is considered substantial. It's not substantial, it's not all, it's substantially all, which means almost all the benefits. So substantially all, how does the standard define? It does not. The standard does not define what is the meaning of substantially all. So you understand that virtually entire benefit from the asset should be coming to the lessee. That's the customer part. Now see clearly more. Substantially all, this is one point. Next, benefits. Sir, benefits means what? Benefits again include direct benefits and also indirect benefits. So whatever benefits the asset gives, our benefits should be coming to lessee. Again, not whatever benefits. Benefits arising only from usage of the asset. Sometimes there will be some benefits which an asset gives to the owner of the asset. So our benefit will come because of the ownership and not because of the usage. So for the purpose of this assessment, we should consider only benefits that are accruing from the usage of the asset. Examples I'll tell you. Next, benefits from the asset substantially from usage should go to lessee when not the life of the asset. Period of usage. Whatever period is agreed, a period lo, a asset ka maximum benefits arising from usage should belong to customer. Then we say that right to control the user, one point is satisfied. Then there is another point. Time being, simply I'll make it understand. Decision making rights should be there with the customer. So suppose you are the owner of a car, sir. Forget about lease transaction. Normally you are the owner of a car. When you are the owner of the car, you get to make all the decisions relating to that car, correct? No? If somebody else is taking decisions on you, will you accept it? What will you say? This is my car. So you are able to exercise control on the car, whether to use or not, for what purpose it has to be used, where to go, where not to go. That is all your decision making. So here also same points. The word control means preventing others from exercising their rights on this. Now you observe, a lessee fellow, he is not the owner of the asset, but under this contract, he agreed period of time lo, he said what purpose we should use, which goods to be manufactured, where this asset will go, where it will not go. All the decision making rights should be there in the hands of the customer. Sir, significant important decision making rights supplier only is having, sir. Fantastic. As a customer, I don't have control over this asset. Once a controller not there, the lease and definition you fail off, sir. Because ultimately, I already told you, a lessee is going to capitalize this asset in his books with the name of ROU asset. If you have to capitalize anything, first of all, I should have control on that resource. A control point we are checking here. So, a control point, 2 points you have to satisfy. Number one, substantially all benefits from the usage of the asset during the period of usage should go to the customer, plus decision making rights should be there with the customer. Now, okay, sir, I am making you write because material, whatever material I have given to you, that's more or less study material ka extract only, sir. Okay, but I've just designed it here and there, but it's more or less study material extract. But the flow of the concepts in this, you'll get confused, sir. So you stick to our notes. Everything will be covered. There's nothing like that. Now, we'll write the story later on. So two conditions are right to obtain substantially all of the economic benefits from the usage of identified asset and right to direct the usage of the identified asset. These two, who should have? The customer should have. Now, substantially all economic benefits means 3 points are covered, sir. Assets primary output. Sir, any asset is capable of giving you either goods or services. It won't simply stay like that. No, asset is capable of giving you some benefit. A primary output ka benefit should belong to the customer, number one. Number two, observe any byproducts. Here, byproducts does not mean that your process costing low, sir, I planned only for 2 children, 1 fellow came extra. Not that. Not that. Not that byproduct he is talking. He is talking about asset giving you benefits. Asset giving you benefits other than the main product. I mean to say, how to say this? Okay, fine. Listen. Sir, I have taken a factory on lease. Okay. The factory building actually belongs to somebody else, but I am the lessee here right now. Sir, I'll tell you a small story. Go on listening. It's general knowledge also, it will help you. There is some story called as carbon credits. You know this? Very good. How do you know this? Detail it is there. Very good. Very good then. So at least some of you know. So carbon credit means, sir, in many industries, because of their manufacturing, especially fertilizer industry, steel industry, some industries low, because of the manufacturing process, lot of carbon gas gets released into environment. This carbon gas is definitely harmful, but we can't ask them to not do their business, no. So what they have done is, they have put a limit on how many carbon units you can emit. For example, looking at your business, looking at your factory size and all, there is a regulation that you can emit up to 1 lakh tons of carbon. The example I'm telling, sir, E particular company, E business law, in 1 year, they can spoil the environment by releasing 1 lakh tons of carbon gas, not more than that. Okay, now, let's say our company name is A Limited. There is another company, B Limited. This fellow also has got a limit of 1 lakh tons. Now, if B Limited has got a huge order, sir. From a huge order came. From a customer, if huge order comes, obviously I am going to satisfy that. That means I have to do more production. If I do more production, I have to release more carbon gas. But the limit given to me is only 1 lakh. Now come to A Limited back again. A Limited fellow, what he did is, in the current year, he emitted only 80,000 tons. When he was given a license to spoil the environment up to 1 lakh tons, he spoiled only to the extent of 80,000 tons. How much he did not spoil? At 20,000 kisar, at 20,000 tons, whatever he did not spoil, though he had a right to spoil, for that he will be given a certificate called as carbon credit. Sir, what will you do with this certificate, sir? Office all bedtara, sir? No. A carbon credit is a tradable instrument, sir. It's just like your share. It is listed also, I'm not joking. It's listed also in some exchanges. What A Limited can do is, suppose now you see B Limited, their quota 1 lakh they finished off. They will spoil environment more. So the rule is, if B Limited want to spoil the environment more, then this B Limited should buy carbon credit from A Limited. So if B Limited will now pay money to A Limited and A will give their carbon credit to B Limited. Now B Limited can spoil more also. Okay, that means it's a kind of a self-control, self-discipline mechanism, and if you are disciplined enough, you will be given an award which is called as carbon credit. A carbon credit you can trade, you can sell it to somebody and make it money out of that basically. So the person who is spoiling the environment more is paying money to person who is spoiling the environment less. Basically, it is that kind of mechanism that is developed, sir. Now, prima facie, if you observe, EA limited factory building where emissions are reduced, because of which carbon credit benefits are enjoyed, a factory does not belong to A limited. A limited is a lessee, but benefit will be given not to the owner of the building. Benefit will be given to the owner of the business who has saved the carbon emissions. So, A limited should be getting this benefit also. This is called as a byproduct or a kind of a indirect benefit from using of the asset. So, what intention? Adi sir. Direct benefit is anyway goods and services are there, primary products. Byproducts. Renewable energy credits that are generated through the use of the asset, including potential cash flows derived from the sale of these items. Anyway, last one is benefits from using the asset that could be realized from a commercial transaction with a third party. That means you are the owner of the asset, you gave the asset to me, I have a right to again sublease it. If I sublease it, what will happen? Whatever rent I am paying to you, I will again recover that rent from somebody else basically. So for example, in the above floor you see, a building is not ours, but E3 floors are under our control, we took it on lease. But again, we have subleased it to some other college, the down floor and the top floor, half building. So, a right to sublease is also capable of giving some benefits to the customer. Our benefit also is covered. But what you should be very careful is, we are talking about only benefits which are coming because of the usage of the asset. Now, for example, there is a machine, sir. A machine purchased by X Limited. This fellow is the owner of the machine. Y Limited is the lessee of the machine. He is using the machine, but he is the owner. Twist is, a machine works using solar energy. It does not consume any normal electricity, it won't consume. Solar energy it will consume, so free. Now, what government has done is, since you are not depending on the traditional energy source, which is the electricity produced out of coal, which is a limited resource, government is giving incentive. They paid 3 lakh rupees, sir. Now tell me, 3 lakh rupees government will pay to whom? Y Limited or X Limited? Not Y Limited. Owner they will pay, sir. Sir, this fellow will stay as a lessee for a period of 2 years and he will go away. Asset life is 50 years. Do you think government will pay incentives to lessee? Not to the lessee. This type of benefits will be given to the owner. So, benefit this fellow received, sir, from the government. Because he is the owner of a solar machine. Sir, government gives benefit for purchasing solar machine, not because you leased it. Correct? No. So, a benefit this fellow received, sir. Now you come and ask me, sir, benefits from the asset, directly or indirectly, lessee is not receiving, no. Lessor received, no. So, point is failed, no. No. Which points are we talking here? Which benefits are we talking here? The benefits which are arising from the usage. Benefit is coming not because of usage. Benefit is coming because of ownership. Benefit is not covered for the purpose of our assessment of whether right to control the use of an identified asset is given to the lessee or not. So, tax benefits which generally comes to the owner, that is not a benefit coming because of usage, that's a benefit coming because of the ownership. Such benefits are ignored for the purpose of this evaluation. Next. In this only, one more line is here. Period of usage. Actually, period of usage we'll talk later on, because right to control one box, identified asset one box, there is one more time. What is the third box? Period of time. Our time is nothing but period of usage basically. But anyway, roughly I'll just tell you. Sir, asset life 40 years, sir. I took the asset on lease only for 3 years. This is the agreed period of usage. Sir, why to do over action? Can't you call it as lease term? No. I cannot call it as lease term unless I establish that this is a lease. Till then I will be calling it as period of usage. All you have to check is 3 years low because of usage. Substantially all benefits from the asset, or rather identified asset, should belong to the customer. We are not saying that substantial benefits from the identified asset in its entire lifetime. Asset ka life 40 years, 40 years ka benefits, how will lessee get, sir? Lease period itself is 3 years, no. So, 3 years say you worry. In this period of usage, one more twist is also there. Look at this. Sir, you know this book exhibitions and all which happen periodically. Every day it will happen. Huh? Every day it happens. It's not called exhibition. It's called bookshop. Okay, so exhibitions and all will happen only at a particular time of the year. So let's say every December, Hyderabad, there will be a book fair for a period of some 1 month or something. Okay. Now, suppose I am the owner or I am the manager of this entire association of some 500 bookshops. All 500 bookshops need a particular place to host the exhibition. But tell me, do I need the place throughout the year? No. I need the place only for a period of 1 month. Sir, how many years? Every year. Every year, I want a particular place only for a period of 1 month. So what I did is, I made a contract like this. With some building property owner, I made a contract that, sir, in each year, December month, a property you should give to us only. Remaining months, we don't want. Only 1 month we are interested. Each year. You made a contract. So here, what is your period of usage? 1 month, that too December month, in every year for a period of 5 years. All you have to worry about is the customer getting substantially all the benefits from the usage of identified asset in this 1 month only? Entire year who is using the asset, all that is irrelevant for you. When I say agreed period of usage can be 5 years at a stretch completely, or it can be non-consecutive periods also. Non-consecutive means something like this. Every year, a few months. The point is simple, sir. Whatever period the supplier and the customer have agreed, a period low, a customer should have full control over the asset. That's all. This is about the first point, sir. First point is substantially all benefits from the usage of the asset during the period of usage should be coming to the customer. Next, right to direct the usage of the identified asset. What is this? The second one. One second, sir. Yeah. We're talking about this one. Sir, when to use the asset, how to use the asset, where to use the asset. Decision making rights should be there with the customer. If customer does not have that right, that means the supplier is indirectly restricting the customer from usage of the asset in the way which he wants to use. Indirectly, there is no control on the asset. So decision making right should be there with the customer. It is a simple point, but there are so many ifs and buts here. Case 1. Suppose, sir, you are the owner of a truck. Okay, listen. So, you are the owner of this truck, sir. Enough, sir, listen. So, this fellow is the owner. Now, here, this fellow is a lessee, or rather, I'll write customer. He took this truck on lease basis. Okay. Now, Excel Limited, tell me, sir, if you really put yourself in the shoes of Excel Limited, won't you put any conditions when you give a asset to somebody? Sir, a lorry ki national permit is not there, sir. But our Pushpa will take this lorry to 3-4 states here and there. If police are there in one area, he will travel 3-4 states and aram se he will go and deliver. So, as a owner of this, don't you put any conditions at all? Some conditions you will put, like don't change the color of the lorry, number 1. Our parts must be intact. Don't travel beyond a particular zone. That means where to travel ka overall boundary is given. Why it is given is, a lorry does not have national permit, sir. If it does not have national permit, you go on the highway beyond the state, they'll seize the asset. So obviously the owner will put a condition there. Then he will say, a lorry must be used, or lorry must not be used for transporting these items. So there are some restricted materials which are not supposed to carry. So he is putting a restriction on that. Sir, My owner is putting so many restrictions, sir. I don't have any freedom in using the asset. E.Point is failed. No. Whatever conditions the owner is putting now, I agree. There are some restrictions given on you, but these restrictions are called as protective rights of supplier. Protective rights of supplier means the supplier prima facie being the owner of the asset, he will be worried that this user will spoil the asset or he will bring more troubles to the owner. So he will have some general boundaries as to how and where to use. Having protective right on the asset does not mean that he is interfering with your decision making ability, because agreeing to that only you took no. So within this boundary you are free to roam. Suppose, sir, you took a taxi on lease from me. I told that you play this taxi only in Hyderabad, not out of Hyderabad. Only in Hyderabad you should take customers here and there. But within Hyderabad, don't go to this lane. Area you should not go. Don't take this type of customer inside. I am not putting any such conditions. All that freedom you have. The only condition which I am keeping is don't take this out of Hyderabad. Don't make any modifications to the asset. Modifications I should not make. How can I not make modifications? I did not like the color of the car, and will you argue, sir? No, that is his car, sir. Basic protective rights he will have. Having protective rights or having protective restrictions is in no way interfering with the directions or right to direct the usage of the asset by the customer. Just because the owner put some restrictions to protect the value of his asset, that does not mean that lessee does not have decision making power. It is not like that. So this can be there, no problem. Next point, sir. What we say is how, what, where the asset must be used. Decision making power should be there with whom, sir? Should be there with the customer. Sometimes what happens is, how and what asset to be used, in some cases it is predetermined. Predetermined means, imagine a case of a big machinery which works with the help of a software. Our software already programmed, sir. You cannot do anything beyond that. That means how the asset must be used, how much quantity it should produce, all that is already pre-decided. All you have to do is just switch on, that's all. Remaining work a machine will do. That means most of the cases, some cases low, how and what purpose is already predetermined. Sir, if how and what is already predetermined, then a user, whoever took the asset on lease, is he having decision making right? Because once asset is pre-programmed, sir, what decision making right will you have normally? Generally, sir, if there is an asset, whether to operate or not, how much quantity you should produce, all that, if it is not pre-programmed, then fine, you make all these decisions. But already, everything is pre-programmed, sir. A machine already is pre-decided. A asset should be used like this only. It should be used for this purpose only. Every day your quantity should not exceed this much. And the machine already pre-programmed, sir. If it is already pre-programmed, how will you evaluate whether customer is having decision making rights or not? How will you evaluate? For that, also standard gives a guidance. It says that customer still has decision making rights if customer has the right to operate the asset. At least asset ka operation customer should do. It hands low. Or he should have the power to appoint somebody else. Sir, just because I take a truck on lease doesn't mean that I will sit in driver's seat. No. See, my business need trucks, sir. 5 trucks I leased it. On my name only, my company name, I am director signed it. That doesn't mean that the director will sit in driver's seat. No. So, right to operate means literally I will not go and operate. Anybody on my behalf also can go and operate the asset. So, if I am operating the asset, that is good enough. Sir, right to operate is not there with customer. Wow. Here comes a very grey area, sir. First of all, how and what are already predetermined. Means a machine, how to use, what purpose it should be used. There is nothing to take decision there because it's already pre-programmed. Okay. Sir, at least switch asan, sir. No. No. Operation I will do, sir. No. That is also. So operation who is doing? Supplier only is doing. Ante machine lo already some factors are pre-programmed. Switch also supplier only is putting it on. Now, in this case, generally speaking, decision making authority is not there with the customer. In this also one possibility is there where you can still have decision making right. That is, you have to go and check who designed the asset. Asset ka designing is there. Our designing low is customer participating in that. Customer designed the asset. If the answer is yes, then he is having decision making rights. Answer is no, then no decision making rights. Sir, asset pre-programmed, okay. Switch also supplier only is putting it on, okay. But asset I only created. That means the asset which supplier is giving it to me, the supplier is owning, the supplier is switching it on. Whatever pre-programmed and all is there, they are all made according to the design specifications given by the lessee. That means whatever pre-programmed thing is there, that I only decided, sir. That means whatever output is coming, how the asset is being used, whatever is pre-programmed, our design itself I gave. What does it mean? I only took the decision on how and where to operate the asset. So in that case, fine, it is still as good as you are having a decision making right. So many points we have come. See, first of all, we are studying lease definition. In lease definition lo right to control the usage of the asset on point is there. Right to control the usage of the identified asset on a point is satisfied if two conditions are there. What are the two conditions? Substantially all the benefits from the usage of the asset during the period of usage should belong to the customer, number one. Number two, decision making rights on the asset should be there with the customer. So in decision making rights, we were now discussing this point. Protective rights will be there, sir. That is not a problem. It can be there. Sometimes if the decision making things are pre-programmed, then what to do? Then you have to see, is the customer having right to operate the asset? If yes, then it's okay. Sir, customer does not operate the asset. Then you have to see, did the customer design the asset? If yes, then that is as good as the point is satisfied. So all these points you got to write down also. Is the right to control, sir. Again on these questions are there. And then identified asset. Again on that. Again period of usage. Once everything is over, so what is lease you will understand. From there onwards you can start using the terms lessee, lessor. Right, sir. Right to so what are the two conditions you have here is customer should have right to obtain substantially all of economic benefits from use of identified asset during the period of usage. And there is a second condition. We did not explain you what is meaning of identified asset yet. Timing you understand it as asset, more clarity will come. Next heading, sir. So these are the main two conditions, sir. Now here some small note points are there. Write one by one. Economic benefits include primary output from the asset, byproduct from asset, benefits from using the asset in a transaction with third party. Examples, if you write, you will remember is first one is the basic goods or services. Second one example is carbon credits are also called as energy credits. Sublease. Not all, that is primary product and it will come off. All goods and services. Costing of whatever byproduct is there, that is part of goods and service, it will come off. But here their intention is not that. Same point in next line, right? We should consider only benefits arising from usage of asset and not ownership of assets. Tax benefits or government grants not to be considered. Not to be considered means not to be considered for this evaluation. Note point 2. Right to direct means customer should have the decision making rights on the asset. That is how and what purpose the asset is used should be decided by customer. if decision making power is with supplier, then this condition is failed. ఈ కండిషన్ ఫెయిల్ అయితే సార్ ఇంక దెర్ ఇస్ నో లీజ్, హియర్ ఆఫ్టర్ ఈ స్టాండర్డ్ విల్ నాట్ అప్లై టు యూ. Note point 3. If, how and what purpose the identified asset can be used is predetermined, then the customer still is deemed to have right to direct the use of asset if. What are the two conditions we gave, or two scenarios we gave? If everything is predetermined, at least right to operate I should have, or right to operate also is not there, then at least I should participate in the design specifications of the asset. In that two cases, then it is still as good as second condition is met. If 1, the customer has the right to operate the asset. The customer does not operate the asset. One more note is there. What is that? Good. Protective rights. Supplier of the asset is effectively the owner of the asset. He will definitely have certain rights on the asset, which will restrict the user from crossing certain boundaries or putting some limitations, modifications to the asset and all. Sir, you take a taxi from me, saying that you will ply people from here and there daily, and you pay me daily rent. But what you did is, you took the car from me, you are using it for running a driving school, sir. Now, driving school or car, you know what is its position? People who have never boarded car also, first time in their life will sit there. Okay. And moreover, at driving, whatever car is used, a car will have two steerings, two power controls and all. The person sitting adjacent, who is the guide, he also can control the car. You will be holding the steering, but driving he will be doing. Okay, so for that we need to do some modification and all. Sir, I gave you car for playing it for hire within the city and pay me rent, not to modify the car and use it for running driving school. I took a car on lease from you and I am giving it on rent to people who are going to hill stations. Sir, hill station, Ghat road, if I take your car, sir, after every one trip you have to go for a servicing. Will you like that? No. So that kind of conditions you will put, sir, and that's perfectly okay. Note point 3. 4. Okay. Protective rights. The supplier of asset may have some rights on the asset that solely protects its interest in asset. These rights of supplier might impose a restriction on customers' ability to direct the use of asset. However, these by itself are not considered as interfering with the satisfaction of about two conditions. So even if protective rights are there, there is no problem. Protective rights they can have. So there are questions on these points. Whatever we have covered exclusively on these questions are there, but we'll do questions after covering one more aspect, which is identified asset concept. Once identified asset discussion is also over, then at once we can discuss that. So just to summarize this, sir, we are discussing lease definition. A lease definition law, we have this term called as right to control the use of identified asset. In that, right to control the use, and when will you say, for that two conditions have to be satisfied. That is, the customer should obtain all the benefits from the asset during the period of usage arising from usage, and customer should have the decision making power. That's all. Protective rates can be there, no problem. If decision making rates are already predetermined, then at least you should see whether this fellow is able to operate the asset or not. If operation also is not there, then you have to see if he has participated in the designing of the asset. Sir, I also participated in that making of that asset. Sir, I only painted the asset. No. Designing the participation means participation such a way where how and what purpose predetermined. No. A predetermination you should go and effect. Okay. Sir, I painted, sir. I broke coconut in front of that. No. You should impact this. Whatever predetermined is there, that you should determine basically. Asset predetermined, but asset who told I should say that. Then the condition is satisfied. Chalo sir. So with this we are completed one dabba, sir. Next one is identified asset. Actually, in the order, first one is identified asset, but it's okay. I change the order. Sir, identified asset meaning simply is ID the asset. It means whatever contract you are entering in between the customer and the supplier, a contract law, they should ID the asset. ID the asset means what is the asset? Asset gurinchi some discussion should be there. Asset should be mentioned there. Sir, that means explicitly it should be mentioned up. That means in a simple way what we are saying is in this contract, E asset should be either explicitly or maybe even implicitly identified. That means the asset ka mention should be there. Sir, explicit identification means what? Explicit identification is like this, sir. Suppose X Limited has got 4 buildings, sir, in a particular area. Now Y Limited wants to take a particular building on lease. A contract look clearly you should mention which building, like there are 4 buildings, which area, which building. For example, if for second building or third building I want to take, a contract law there should be enough detail to identify and locate this third building basically. So normally what details you should give? A building size, or like this many floors building, or this many square yards wala building, or east facing building, or a house number or plot number or whatever that. Some people latest agreements I have seen where they are putting this location also. Not Google locations, are latitude, longitude positions will be there. That also they are identifying as to which land or which property is taken on lease. So the physical identification is one example. Another example you see. There is A Limited who is the owner of the building. A building no sir, a top floor alone B Limited want to take it on lease. A contract law clearly there should be enough mention that this floor only is being considered for the purpose of lease transaction. That means the 4th floor or 3rd floor or what is the safety of that, all the details must be clearly mentioned, sir. That means the E property A and a clarity should be there in the asset. So that means explicit no. Why do you do it implicit also? I'll tell you. So let's say you went to a person and say that I want to marry your daughter. Listen. Okay, now if he has more than one daughter, then you have to definitely specify which daughter, isn't it, sir? So the explicit. But he has only one daughter. Will he ask which daughter? No. So when I say that I want to marry your daughter, that means it's implied that he has only one daughter. I want to marry that daughter only. No. So he will not ask me which one. Okay. So the point is, sometimes explicitly it might not be mentioned, but it is implied, sir. For example, Z Limited a company is there. This fellow has only one machinery, sir. And with Z Limited, Y Limited entered into a contract that, say after 3 months by so and so date, machinery you should give it to me for a period of 5 years hereafter. So, machinery ka type, brand, color, all that is not mentioned in the contract. But Z Limited has only one machinery, and to fulfill the contract he has to use that machinery only. So it is impliedly identified. Explicit identification means clearly a physical attributes, location and all generally will be mentioned in the contract. Implicitly it may not be mentioned. The point ultimately what I am trying to say is a contract law asset must be ID'd, sir. Which asset? Any clearly idea should come. Generally people don't take risks, sir. They explicitly detailedly write. But if some cases they do not write, means your cases like this. Next. Which point? One more example came, I forgot. Wait. Okay, fine. Again it will come at the time. There is another point which is the asset must be physically distinct. What is the meaning of physically distinct is? Means identified asset should be physically distinct, means ఈ above cases you observe, out of the first example you say, out of the 4 buildings, e building should be completely separable from other buildings. Similarly, out of the 4 floors, the floor which I am taking, the 4th floor, is clearly separate from other floors. That means physically you should be able to demarcate. See only this portion of the property, any identification should be done, sir. Here I only one mention is there, no problem. Now, if physically distinct law, sir, one case is there. Suppose there is a building, sir. A building ka capacity, it's a storehouse, godown type, warehouse type building. E capacity is to hold 10,000 kgs. E building ki this fellow is the owner. Now I have a factory somewhere in the outskirts. Once my production is done, I bring the units to the city and I put it in this warehouse, sir. From here dealers will pick up. So I need some space in this building. So I, the user, went to X Limited and I told X Limited, see X Limited, for the next 3 years, a building no some space we want. X Limited obviously will ask you how much space do you want. I told, on an average, okay, 800 kgs of my material will be stored in your godown. X Limited says, fantastic, deal is done. For next 5 years, I will allot a space where 800 kgs of your material will be stored in my godown. User told, sir, 800 kgs space I have a right now. 800 kgs ki space ee building lo where, sir? E building capacity is 10,000 kgs. There are so many floors, so many rooms and all. User is asking, sir, my goods, where should I keep inside that? A building lo but building lo where? X Limited says, why are you worried about all that? You come off directly. At the time, wherever place is there, I'll give you best place. That's what he told. Now, this fellow has entered into a contract where he's paying money, where he has a right on the asset, but that asset is not identified. Tell me, sir, is this user having right on this entire building? Wherever he wants, he can store? No. Which portion with he is having control? Don't know. Gone. Physically distinct and a point to fail aithe, there is no identified asset. Ee case lo, are you ultimately getting some space? Yes, I'm ultimately getting space. There's no doubt on that. I'm getting space. But am I having control over that space? Asal control avalante asal space, what is that space you should know? No. Control ka point earlier we discussed. Right to control the usage. Right to control the usage of what? Okay, identified asset. How will you identify? It should be physically distinct first of all. Adi which place lo my 800 kgs worth of space I am getting? I should know. If I do not know that, then identified asset and a point A you fail off. E point fail, I think lease and a definition failed, sir. Okay. In this another case is there. Same story. X Limited, this fellow went. So 800 kg. Okay, let's make, okay, fine. Same example. User went. User told that X Limited needs space for the next 5 years to store my goods. X Limited asked user, how much capacity of the building you want? You are saying that on an average 9,800 kgs of my goods will be stored in your godown throughout the year. Actually, godown capacity is how much? 10,000 kgs. My goods are coming 9,800 kgs. Now, a user did not ask 9,800 kgs, where should I keep it? He did not ask. X Limited also did not say. Deal is done. Now you go to user and ask him, sir, do you have a right to use the asset to store your goods? Yes. Now you come and ask the user, ee building lo which space? Which space? Don't know. Don't know. We haven't identified. I also did not ask. He also did not say. Why did you not ask? Why you did not ask is virtually that entire building is mine now for the next 5 years. Substantially all I am only enjoying. Ee case lo physically distinct ante no, because we did not agree. Even though it is not physically distinct, still there is a identified asset, because substantially all of the capacity of the asset is being given to me only. Whereas in this case also physically distinct wala point failed. But he failed here. We simply said that, Babu, there is no identified asset for you. But here there is a identified asset. What is the reason between these two is, in first case lo, I asked you, do you have a right to control that building? You said no. Why? Total 10,000 units lo 800 units had a power. Adi where also you don't know. So a point failed. But second example lo, total 10,000 capacity lo 9,800 capacity is under my control. Adi which 9,800 I do not know. But our 9,000 is substantially all of the capacity of the asset. It's not substantial, simple majority and all. Substantially all, which means almost 100%. Almost 100%. That much power I am taking. In this case, you need not go and identify. You need not go and shout that E place is mine, E place is mine. Virtually this place is yours. A small place though, somebody else might be saving goods. But virtually asset capacity is taken out only, so here there is no problem. Even though it is not physically distinct, still there is a identified asset for you. That's all, sir. Identified asset heading. Heading you don't know, under that right points. No. After this, right. The asset under the contract must be identified. It can be identified explicitly or it can be implied. Sir, all this we are studying as a part of lease definition, correct? Whether contract is lease or contains a lease, when should we evaluate this? Starting date. Our starting date we gave a name, inception date. Okay. Inception date ka purpose is what? Only this evaluation. Accounting will not happen on inception date. Account will happen on another date called as commencement date. Okay. Now, suppose sir, A Limited is the owner of the asset, or A Limited is the proposed lessor supplier. Today B Limited is the customer. They both entered into an agreement. Asset gurinchi detailedly identification is done. This type of asset, E color it should be there, E brand it should have, its capacity should be detailedly identified. Now, a supplier does not have the asset. Supplier asset లేదు sir. But still contract he is entering. Can he enter like that? Of course yes. Why? Inception date is different. Commencement date is different. Commencement date means the date on which lessee gets the power on the asset. So agreement is happening on 1st of January. Commencement date is 1st of May. Still 4-5 months time is there. In this meantime, a lessor will buy the asset and give it to me, or build the asset and give it to me. That's not our problem. We are saying that asset must be identified means it's not like you should go and see the asset, take a selfie with the asset. No, identified asset means not holding the asset, hugging the asset. Here identified asset means asset, what type of asset it is, asset ka specifications must be identified. Asset physically might be there, might not be there. So existence of asset on the inception date is not the condition. So asset should be identified means asset ka features must be identified, not the physically asset I should see, no, not necessarily. That is another discussion. No? If he does not give the asset what you want, that is altogether a different discussion. That's not about our lease definition. You go and fight with him, you cancel the lease agreement. For that you have alternative provisions. Right. Same point and explain. If the details about the asset are specified in the contract, then there is an identified asset even if the asset physically does not exist on inception date. The asset under contract must be physically distinct. It could be a complete asset or a portion of asset. If asset is not physically distinct, then there is no identified asset. The moment we say there is no identified asset, if it is not physically distinct, immediately exception fellow will come away. What is the exception given? Even if the asset is not physically distinct, even then there is an identified asset if you have contracted to obtain substantially all of the capacity of the asset. In that case, there is no problem. Even if asset is not physically distinct, it is an identified asset if customer has contracted to use substantially all of the capacity of the asset. There is one more point in this which is called as substantive substitution rights of the supplier. We got to do that, and then identified asset story will be done.